There's a reason you're by yourself. There's a reason you got to pay a man to love you. It's sad. There's an old adage that says you can't buy love. It's a shame, Monique, that you probably always will have to. Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar.
No, tell the damn truth. God damn it, tell the truth. Because
it's almost like Wendy Williams didn't go anywhere. She's got a weight set. Every time I see Monique these days, she's on doing some greasy ass video with her and her daddy complaining about something or working out. I don't know nobody that work out that much and gain weight unless every crunch you do has got Captain in front of it. She goes on Club Shay Shay and tells the story about how she came on my radio show and I wasn't there at the time. And my co-host Jasmine Sanders played a game that we played all the time with everybody called Would You Rather. She apparently was so offended by that she said she got off. She called me. Monique did, and she said I was very dismissive, like, Monique's a liar.
Would you rather your husband sleep with Lee Daniels with a condom or Corinne Steffens without one?
When Monique did call me, I heard her complaints. I listened to her and I pulled the segment. So if I had been as dismissive as she alleges I was, that segment would have aired. It didn't because I respected her wishes. She's a liar. Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar. It's also befuddles the shit out of me how somebody who as a comedian talks as much shit about everybody else as she does, she has the temerity to be offended about anything as much shit as you say about people. There's an old adage that says you can't buy love. It's a shame, Monique, that you probably always will have to. Then she encouraged everybody, allegedly it stems from the fact that I used to always talk shit about her on video after video, and she encouraged her sweet babies to look at the video and find them. Do that. Do exactly what she says. And you know what you're not going to find? You're not going to find any evidence of that because Monique is a fucking liar. She's lying about that. Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar.
Let me say it again. The headliner. That's what the motherfucking contract says. Monique is to be the last motherfucking person on the goddamn stage. She is the headliner. That's what I signed the fuck up for. I'm 30 plus years in this motherfucking business and I don't open for no goddamn body. The contract said the headliner. The contract said the headliner. The contract said the headliner. But a nigga named D.L. Hughley turned into a bitch and said I won't perform if she does that. I won't go out if she does that. Nigga, you open for the kings of comedy. I close for the queens of comedy, nigga.
But what you will find is Monique talking shit about some alleged contract dispute we had. Look at the ticket. It says D.L. Hughley, then Monique. She knows the story. But what she did in response to that, she talked about my dog, my wife. This broad even brought out my daughter's personal trauma. My daughter was molested and Monique brought that shit out and told the world that I allowed my daughter to be raped in front of me. The lying motherfucker. Monique's a liar.
Monique's a liar. And because of their names, nigga, your name is DL. What the fuck does it stand for? How far you bending over, nigga, on the DL?
She knows she was lying. And it only stopped when everybody from my family checked her. It's interesting. You know what else you won't see Monique doing? You won't ever see her with her family, videos with her children or grandchildren, because nobody fucks with me. How do you have sweet babies when your own babies don't fuck with you?
There's a brother named D.L. Hughley, and until he take accountability, I won't let it go. Family is sacred. And we know that you don't cross the line when it comes to family. I do DL's radio show. D.L. Hughley is not there. His team is there. We having a great time. I mean, baby, we having a great time. We going forward, back and forth. When we get to the end of the show, they say, Monique, you want to play a game? Well, I want to play. I said, sure, sugar. Let's play a game. And it's a game called Would You Rather. So here we go. They said, Monique, we want to play a game of Would You Rather. Let's go. Would you rather your husband sleep with Lee Daniels with a condom or Corinne Steffens without one?
Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar.
Now, I say to the team, how does that uplift our community? I said, sister, and her name is Jasmine, how could you ask another sister that? Well, we just planned. I said, tell me the joke in that because I don't know what you're insinuating. Then you're involving people that have nothing to do with nothing. Like, what are y'all doing? So I said, I'm going to call my brother. DL. I'm going to call my brother. I call DL Hughley on the phone. I say, hey, baby. Yeah. That's how he responds. Yeah. Hey, DL. Yeah. I said, listen, I just got off the phone with your team and they wanted to play this game, Would You Rather? And it was like stupid. Like asking me about my husband and Lee Daniels and Corinne Steffens. And his exact words, well, that's how we do it. I said, DL, how does that uplift our community? And again, I don't know what y'all trying to insinuate, but brother, what you doing? Like I said, that's just how we do it. So it is what it is. Now, it got so ugly that my attorney had to send a cease and desist. So it never aired. So we have, like, when Cat Williams talk and people, truth tellers talk, we have receipts to everything we're saying. That's how that whole thing got started.
Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar. How do you love us for real when there's no evidence of anybody loving you for real, except your daddy, who you apparently have to pay? And FYI, daughters are paid for by daddies, not daddies who get paid by their daughters. You know what else you won't see Monique doing? Telling jokes. Monique, if she'd have spent as much time actually writing jokes and writing her Netflix special as she did complaining about not having one, it wouldn't have been trash. Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar. It got the worst reviews of any Netflix special in history, because that's what Monique does.
It's family. My husband is my family. You babies that are really good with this internet, through the years, I've watched DL speak ill of me. Through the years, I never knew DL Hughley had a problem with me. But when Cass said they all a group, he forgot to put DL Hughley in the group.
She complains and she has grievances. You never see her being a human being. You never see her being sweet and warm to people, except when she's using it to butter somebody up to get something. There's a reason why everywhere she goes, shit starts. Everywhere she goes. How is it that nobody fucks with you, not even your family? How do you, well, I was on the road getting it. I get it every goddamn week. Look at my schedule versus yours. See how much I'm going. And I still manage to have a relationship that I cherish with my children. Can you say the same? You can't. Because all you do is talk about your grievances and who did you wrong.
Through the years, I was bitter. I was dangerous with what I was doing, saying that it was inequality. My husband didn't know what he was doing. This went on through the years. I was unloved, all of these things. And I said to myself, I'ma see you. I'ma see you. I didn't go on nobody's show. I didn't say nothing to nobody, but I knew the time would come that I would see him. We were scheduled to do a show in Los Angeles. I was the headliner of that show. His name was on it, then his name came off. I didn't question it, but I knew I'ma see him.
There's a reason you're by yourself. There's a reason you got to pay a man to love you. It's sad. There's an old adage that said you can't buy love. It's a shame, Monique, that you probably always will have to.
Now we have a show in Detroit.
Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar.
Contractually, I was the headliner. D.L. Hughley posted a memo. He put out a memo to our community. And that touched me a little different, because I was saying, why would you lie to our babies? Because now they're thinking if they send somebody a memo, that's what they're supposed to get. I was contractually signed to go as the headliner. D.L. Hughley didn't come into the building until 9:30. Now, contractually, I said I have to be on stage by 9:30, because if the show starts at 8, I refuse to keep an audience waiting. When I went out on that stage, I made sure everything I said, he heard me, because now you're here and I'm going to say it to you. And I said some things on that stage that I said he was cowardly. And some folks said, how could you say that? How could you do that? And then I posted some things to say, this is what I meant. See, you came after my husband. And when you had a chance to fix it, when you had a chance to say, Mo, my bad, you told me it is what it is. And until he's brave enough and courageous enough to say, this is what really happened, y'all. Y'all have never known me to be no shit starter. Folks ain't never known me to go over and kick a sandwich out of somebody's hand that's hungry. But what people do know is, if you kick me, damn if I ain't gonna kick you back.
It's a shame, Monique, that you probably always will have to. Monique's a liar. Monique's a liar.
Talk about young thugs, and because of their names, nigga, your name is DL. What the fuck does it stand for? How far you bending over, nigga, on the DL? How far you bending over, nigga, on the DL?
Monique's a liar.
These privileged Hollywood entertainment types are really something. Beyonce didn't reference the Black Panthers to bring about some kind of positive change. She did it to get attention. Good for you. You made headlines. You, just like President Obama, Jada Pinkett Smith, Al Sharpton, and so many others, just can't let America heal. Just can't let America heal.
You are sorely, surely mistaken. See what it says? Your husband was a drug dealer. Worry about that. You are sorely, surely mistaken. See what it says? Your husband was a drug dealer. Worry about that. Okay, let's open up with Jeremiah 6. I want to touch on the origin of Black History Month. Let's go to Google, please. Let's go to Google and look up Black History Month. And y'all got to let me know, when is, hey, Abby, when is Latin History Month? When is that? They just made that thing up. When is that one? September. We're going to talk about y'all in September, so y'all got a few more months. I want to read briefly about the origin of Black History Month. Some of you in here may or may not be familiar with it. You young ones, I know you definitely are not familiar with it, so we're going to read it for you. It reads, Black History Month, also known as African American History Month in America, is an annual observance in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom for remembrance of important people. It says for remembrance of important people and events in the history of the African diaspora. Black History Month is a month of remembrance of important people and events in the history of the African diaspora, as they call African diaspora, but we know it's Israelites. Precursor to Black History Month was created in 1926 in the United States when historian Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History announced the second week of February to be Negro History Week. This week was chosen because it coincided with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln on February 12th. And of Frederick Douglass on February 14th, both of which dates Black communities had celebrated together since the late 19th century. Okay, see where it says Black History Month, 1976. So I went from Black History Week, now watch what it says here. The expansion of Black History Week to Black History Month was first proposed by the leaders of the Black United Students of Kent State University in February 1969. The first celebration of the Black History Month took place at Kent State 1 year later, February 1970. Okay. Right. So now, watch this. Let's go out of here. So we see how it started. Went from Black History Week to Black History Month in 1970. I want to take us to the article on Beyonce. Give me the article, Daily News, music. Here's why Beyonce haters are wrong. Protesters are planning an anti-Beyonce rally due to Super Bowl performance. All right, I'm going to read the article, Daily News. It may be time for America to tweak its fundamental tagline because the land of the free, the home of the brave, no longer fits. In the face of the mounting criticism of Beyonce's Super Bowl performance on Sunday, it sure seems like America has become the land of the amnesia patients. On the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, its original name, Beyonce crashed Coldplay's Rainbow, its stage to deliver a message. People of color are tired of being killed, tired of being shortchanged, tired of having their feelings being mocked by the very demographic that continues to hold them back. The picked out afros, the all-black attire, the militant garb, and song to match. If you listen to the lyrics, she talks about people don't like our nappy hair, our wide nose, breathing up all the white man's air, things like that. The lyrics was okay. The picked out afros, the all-black attire, the militant garb, and song to match had some viewers asking why the NFL allowed Beyonce to make the radical chic. How quickly we all have forgotten the pain in this country has inflicted on people of color and continues to do so today. The land of the shortened memories empowered police to sick dogs on innocent people and spray them down with powerful water hoses simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This great America barred its deep complexion citizens from riding in the front of the bus and using the same water fountain as others, among countless other outlandish inequities and indecencies. The revolutionary group born in Oakland, California in 1966 by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale provided demands for the improvement of life for black people, a radical list that included freedom, number one, number two, that's radical. Number two, full employment for black people. Number three, decent housing. 4, education. 5, end police brutality. Well, yeah, that's radical. I thought that was just, normal for people. Beyonce and other public figures have remained silent on this issue for far too long. I'm going to read that again. This is why I said to y'all what I said earlier. Beyonce and other public figures have remained silent on this issue for far too long. But now that she has a child who could easily become the next #victim, Miss Carter has chosen to speak up. And for that, she's being called a racist and anti-police. But ignoring the points of her halftime show and a video of her new song, Formation, is its own form of racism. And racism comes from fear of the unknown, which should be expected in a country where even something as simple as Black History Month lessons in school is under fire. People fear what they don't know, and they don't want to learn, so the fear grows. Now, it is a grave misconception that Black Panthers promoted the killings of police. Let me read that part again. It is a grave misconception that Black Panthers promoted the killings of police. That's accurate. They did not promote it. Just as it is so that Black Lives Matter means every other life doesn't. Exactly. Black pride, the message Beyonce was trying to convey, means being proud of who you are, what you look like, and where you come from. Black people with our full lips, kinky hair, dark skin have been called ugly, ignorant, and undereducated for so long that there wasn't a better stage for this type of moment. The symbolism of Queen Bey's efforts missed some people, and that's because the message wasn't for them. Now that's some heavy stuff right there. I wanted all that to show you the hypocrisy of Black History Month. The thing she did during the NFL was about Black History Month. Folks got angry. They said, why didn't she do a march on Martin Luther King? She didn't choose to do Martin Luther King. She chose the Black Panthers, who else? Malcolm X, right, because they formed the X. And folks went crazy. Your friends at work went mad. Now I want to show the next video with the woman commenting on Beyonce. Tommy Lahren to Beyonce. I don't know, Tommy, however you say the name. The shul. You see what it says? Your husband was a drug dealer. Worry about that. Some of y'all think the woman is not in cahoots or in league with her man. You are surely mistaken.
Just can't let America heal. Just can't let America heal. First it was hands up, don't shoot. Then it was burning down buildings and looting drugstores, all the way to Oscars So White. And now even the Super Bowl halftime show has become a way to politicize and advance the notion that Black lives matter more. This isn't about equality. This is about ramrodding an aggressive agenda down our throats and using fame and entertainment value to do so. Beyonce, really? What is the political message here? What is it they are trying to convey here? A salute to what? A group that used violence and intimidation to advance not racial equality, but an overthrow of white domination? The Black Panthers, for those who don't know, were critical of Martin Luther King's non-violent civil rights movement. They didn't believe in change through peace. They promoted violence instead. So congratulations, Beyonce. You made your statement. You should be proud of yourself. The Super Bowl, the most watched event on television. A game that brings Americans of every color, background, and political party together. A game where Black fans cheer next to white fans. A game where teammates work together as one, regardless of race. A celebration of diversity rooted in a common bond. But forget that. These privileged Hollywood entertainment types are really something. Beyonce didn't reference the Black Panthers to bring about some kind of positive change. She did it to get attention. Good for you. You made headlines. You, just like President Obama, Jada Pinkett Smith, Al Sharpton, and so many others, just can't let America heal. Keep ripping off the historical Band-Aid. Why be a cultural leader when you can play the victim, right? Guess what, Beyonce? White people like your music too. White people buy your songs on iTunes, memorize your lyrics, and admire your talent and beauty. Little white girls want to be like you just as little black girls do. But instead of recognizing that, you would rather perpetuate the great battle of the races. Your husband was a drug dealer. For 14 years, he sold crack cocaine. Talk about protecting Black neighborhoods. Start at home.
So her and her husband got their little Negro wake-up call. So they said, why don't you let America heal? You are surely mistaken. See what it says? Your husband was a drug dealer. Worry about that. You are surely mistaken. See what it says? Your husband was a drug dealer. Worry about that. During Black History Month, it's about remembering all the great Black leaders that rose up. Doesn't that fit Huey Newton and Bobby Seale? Yes, they were great Black leaders. Doesn't that fit Malcolm X? Yes. But they don't want that. They want you to remember Martin Luther King's nonviolent. Don't stand, she said it, don't stand against white domination. How dare you?
Did y'all hear when she said that? She said, do not fight white supremacy. That's what she was really saying.
That's what she was saying. That's exactly what she was saying. You are surely mistaken.
Jamaica did there before Rasta there. And most of the people in Jamaica are not Rasta. Most of the people in Jamaica are not Rasta.
Rasta is king. Why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And it was Rasta who have a country called Jamaica. And if Rasta is the king that built this foundation, why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And if it wasn't for Rasta, there wouldn't be a place called Jamaica. Rasta is king. And one why Rasta's lion is the king is sleeping. The king is sleeping. Rasta is king. Rasta is king.
Some people that take, hold on. Some people that take issue with what you just said a while ago. Say, a Rasta build the foundation of Jamaica. Explain to me what you're talking about.
You remember the days when Rasta take things serious. And Rasta don't play around with things like this. Now realize backside industry gone, banana industry gone, sugar industry gone, airline industry gone, I know they want the
ganja gone, ganja industry gone.
The ganja industry gone, they take that from with you. See that?
Yeah.
And I know they want to look with the beach we got now too. See?
Yeah.
I think that was support that part there, no. So with some things that go on. I wonder where Rasta there, because I wonder if the lion never sleep. I wonder if the lion is sleeping.
Well, we can't help you wake them up. That we are trying to.
And we don't want to try things, you know, Muta. And I try things to do, you know. I do things to get things done. Stop trying to things and to just get things into action and get things done. I'm wondering why Rasta's lion is the king is sleeping. When them get too tame or them belly full. Which one? Who want to wake up all of the lion them? No, brother. Rasta is king. And if it wasn't for Rasta, there wouldn't be a place called Jamaica. Rasta is king. Rasta is king. And it was Rasta who would have a country called Jamaica. And if Rasta is the king that built this foundation, why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Well,
some people that take hold on. Some people that take issue with what you just said a while ago. Say a Jamaica, a Rasta build the foundation of Jamaica. Explain to me what you're talking about. Explain to me what you're talking about.
Well, up here, put it this way. Everything about Jamaica is a Rasta culture.
Like what? Tell me, like everything. When you say everything is a broad thing, you know.
The culture, the highness of the high. Selassie high.
No, we know about that, but you say, hold on there, no, Virgin. Hold on there. Yeah, listen to me. Jamaica is there before Rasta there. And most of the people in Jamaica are not Rasta. Now you make a thing, you know, you spread an argument, you know, say, if it wasn't for Rasta, you wouldn't have no Jamaica. You don't think that's that kind of little wide statement you make?
No, and you know why I moved that? Because our foundation is built of a Rasta culture. Everything about
like what? Well, like which foundation will have a Rasta? Hold on, no man. Which
as Rasta, and I represent Jamaica as our birthplace, where Rasta has been resurrected after being crucified. See? So me now.
Yeah, but me ask you, tell me the things them where Rasta. What you talk about when you say it's the foundation of Jamaica is built up off a Rasta? What is the things them you talk about?
Everything about
because the foundation built up off a Rasta. And the place stays, so that means there's something wrong with the Rasta culture.
The culture, the whole way of life. The whole way of life.
The whole way of life of who? Of Jamaican people?
Jamaican people.
Jamaican people don't live Rasta way of life.
What do you mean Jamaican don't Rasta right?
No, Jamaican people don't live Rastafari way of life. Because some of them, first of all, a whole part of them don't like locks. They don't like locks, man. This icon food thing, which is a culture, them can't take that.
Come on, man.
The Africa thing, wait, no. To claim you're African, most Jamaicans now see themselves as African. That's the main thing.
And then thing them I look for. I look for where you want to yourself at.
You say culture. Culture is the way of a people, you know. Jamaica is there before Rasta there. And most of the people in Jamaica are not Rasta.
Rasta is king. Why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And it was Rasta who would have a country called Jamaica. And if Rasta is the king that built this foundation, why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And if it wasn't for Rasta, there wouldn't be a place called Jamaica. Rasta is king. I'm wondering why Rasta's lion is the king is sleeping. The king is sleeping. Rasta is king. Rasta is king.
Some people that take, hold on. Some people that take issue with what you just said a while ago. Say, a Jamaica, a Rasta build the foundation of Jamaica. Explain to me what you're talking about. No, let me talk. Culture is a way of a people. Rasta culture is not the way of Jamaican people. Most Jamaicans don't embrace Rastafari culture.
All along with Bob Marley, Peter Touch, Bonnie Wheeler, culture, and all of them and they run things. So what make the difference now?
Them never run things. They make good music and consciousness.
This is Rasta Muta. You come like you know promote Rasta Muta. You know promote Rasta Muta. How you do Muta? You can't put on King I Rasta.
No.
You can't do that.
No much years now.
You have to promote Rasta in the Muta.
So what we do on the
Rasta country Muta. And Rasta supposed to sit in the White House. Rasta supposed to sit in a Jamaica house now and make some decision about what's going on in this country. So why you know why them position there?
Jamaica is there before Rasta there. And most of the people in Jamaica are not Rasta.
Rasta is king. Why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And it was Rasta who would have a country called Jamaica. And if Rasta is the king that built this foundation, why Rasta is not sitting into the throne? Rasta is king. And if it wasn't for Rasta, there wouldn't be a place called Jamaica. Rasta is king. I'm wondering why Rasta's lion is the king is sleeping. The king is sleeping. Rasta is king. Rasta is king.
Some people that take, hold on. Some people that take issue with what you just said a while ago. Say, a Jamaica, a Rasta build the foundation of Jamaica. Explain to me what you're talking about.
Rasta is king. Rasta is king.
we still believe them. We still believe them. I remember not so long ago, they came and told us that our culture meant nothing. And we believed them. And unfortunately, we still believe them. The French came. The Germans came. The Italians came. The Belgians came. The English came. They came and planted the seed amongst brother and brother, sister and sister, and things fell apart, and they have remained apart. So they came and found Lake Muitanzige and say, no, it is Lake Albert. They came and found our lake with our name. They say, this is Edward. They said another one is George. The falls which we had lived with, they said, this is Murchison. And even our national park, they called it Elizabeth. And when they went down, they found Lake Narubare and said, this is Victoria. And when they went down, they said that the falls, Mosio Tunya, was Victoria Falls. We are gathered here to remind ourselves of the place of culture in the lives of our society. They came and told us that our culture meant nothing. And we believed them. And unfortunately, we still believe them. The Bunyoro, Kitara, and the many kingdoms that we have in Uganda, and indeed in the continent of Africa, have been victimized by other civilizations. The Portuguese came. They were in West Africa. They were in the Congo. And we welcomed them as we normally do, and we still do. And no sooner had we welcomed them than they made the claim that they had discovered us. They discovered us, they claimed. They discovered our mountains which we had lived next to for ages. But we know that prior to the rude disruption of our governance system, African kingdoms were organized. The Bunyoro Kitara kingdom was organized, and even the European historians and anthropologists who have tried to say no recognize that they were. The Buganda kingdom was organized. The Toro were organized. The Banyankole were organized. The Shilluk in what is present-day South Sudan were organized. The Yoruba were organized in what is present-day Nigeria. The Akan were organized. The Zulu were organized. We were organized. The history of Africa is therefore a history of welcoming other civilizations in the hope that they would reciprocate. But history teaches us that they did not. And it is not only the Europeans who started that journey of disruption and exploitation. The Arabs did it, and we don't talk about it as loudly as we should. They came, and they took us into slavery, and they castrated our men, so that when you don't see dark-skinned people in the numbers that we should in the Arab world, is because they castrated men, and we must never forget that. The French came. The Germans came, the Italians came, the Belgians came, the English came, all in their arrogance, and they made their way. And in what we now call Uganda, they came to the Bunyoro Kitara kingdom, and they were resisted by Kabarega. And a man called Baker came, and he was beaten by Kabarega. History teaches us. But then they went away, and they assembled in Berlin, in 1884 and 1885, and they divided us into what we now have as Uganda, as Tanzania, as Kenya. We are now 54 and still counting. They came and told us that our culture meant nothing, and we believed them, and unfortunately we still believe them. But what we must never forget is that at all time we resisted. Those who say we never resisted are mistaken. We did. They planted the seeds of division. I can still remember those famous words of Nigeria's Chinua Achebe in his book, Things Fall Apart, when he says that they came and planted the seed amongst brother and brother, sister and sister, and things fell apart, and they have remained apart. They came and they disrupted us. They told us that our God was not God. They came with a God, and today, when you go into many households of those who claim to be Christians or those who are Christians, you find the image of an actor called Geoffrey Hunter being received as the image of Jesus Christ. They came and told us that our names were not good names, and they gave us names. They came and told us that our natural features had to acquire different names. They came and told us that our culture meant nothing, and we believed them, and unfortunately we still believe them. We still believe them. We still believe them. We are faced with a very challenged world. We are faced with a very challenged world.
The establishment of an African military, the establishment of a single currency, a single monetary policy, a single stock exchange. We have not been able to accomplish any of those building blocks.
I begin by saying the world is a very troubled place, and I don't want us to pretend that it is easy. It's not. We are faced with a very challenged world. And this year, the IMF has suddenly reported that Ghana is going to see amazing growth after they received loans from the IMF. But nobody is examining, do the children of Ghana have classrooms? Do they have teachers in those classrooms? Are they able to go to hospital and get treatment? Are the people of Ghana getting housing? Because the first target of IMF loans is public services. So it's important that we look not just at what support is provided, but at the quid pro quos that governments have to make in order to have access to that funding. The world is a very troubled place, and I don't want us to pretend that it is easy. It's not. We are faced with a very challenged world.
The establishment of an African military, the establishment of a single currency, a single monetary policy, a single stock exchange. We have not been able to accomplish any of those building blocks.
We will never accept it as South Africa, and while we appreciate the role that the Organization of African Unity played in us achieving our freedom as South Africa, this decision of the AU Commission chairperson will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. Will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. I thought I would get support from many of the countries gathered in the room. But what I discovered is that countries that are oppressors, that continue to be colonial occupiers, are using financial muscle to provide grant in aid to African countries and secure the depoliticized support of African countries for these oppressive nations. Will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. The world is a very troubled place, and I don't want us to pretend that it is easy. It's not. We are faced with a very challenged world. Will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. Among them, Israel and Morocco. They're playing a very negative role in Africa. And comrades, I'm being frank here because you in this room, you are supposed to be trade union leaders, many of you, or you lead progressive organizations, and you are failing in your duty to convince governments in Africa and all other countries of the South that they cannot tolerate such situations. It can't be left to us as members of government to be the ones that take up these issues with no word from progressive organizations. This is intolerable and cannot continue. So I'm hoping out of this conference that you are going to decide, rise up, rise up, rise up. Don't say what's Comrade Naledi doing. To all progressive unions worldwide, the unions in the United States of America, weak or strong, should be making it clear to President Biden they don't appreciate his statement, which has led to the slaughter we are seeing today. The union movement in the United Kingdom should be doing the same. If we know our work, I have no idea what has happened to our organizational capability. Because as South African leadership, our trade union movement was able to marshal under the worst oppressive chains. We were able to marshal international solidarity of a kind that has not been seen since the struggle against apartheid. Where have all these progressive leaders gone and why? Will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. The world is a very troubled place, and I don't want us to pretend that it is easy. It's not. We are faced with a very challenged world.
To my fellow African diaspora, Africans on the continent, all people of African descent around the world, friends of Africa, and all inhabitants of our beloved earth, happy Africa Day. As we celebrate Africa Day, let's reflect on what our Pan-African fathers wanted to accomplish when they met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, back in 1963. They met to discuss the possibility of an Africa that was united, an Africa that spoke with one voice, an Africa that could only defeat colonization, an Africa that could only succeed at accomplishing and winning true economic liberation through unity. Through unity, meaningful unity of purpose. The others who were the Monrovia group, they said, let's hold off on this unity thing. Let's go slow. My fellow brothers and sisters, Africa lost when the Casablanca group lost in 1963. They came out with a compromise agreement, which was the Organization of African Unity, which has since been renamed African Union. Since 1963, we have been going slow, which were the wishes of the Monrovia group. The only issue we've been able to accomplish since 1963 was the creation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is now seeing Africa going to the world stage as one customs union. The other wishes, which were the establishment of an African military, the establishment of a single currency, a single monetary policy, a single stock exchange, we have not been able to accomplish any of those building blocks.
Will make us consider whether we can be present in the African Union. The world is a very troubled place, and I don't want us to pretend that it is easy. It's not. We are faced with a very challenged world. We are faced with a very challenged world.
In order for us to understand the present, we must understand the past, which will also enable us to have a glimpse on what the future holds.
Cultural leadership was obliterated. Cultural leadership was obliterated. There's this mentality.
Let me start by saying that the subject of Pan-Africanism is one that remains as important today as it was, in my view, many years ago. Those of you who are familiar with the struggle for Pan-Africanism will remember its story, particularly through the activities of Africans in the diaspora. You'll particularly remember that prior to the much more famous meeting held in 1945 in Manchester, in the United Kingdom, Africans in the diaspora, particularly in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Jamaica, were very particular about having connection with the continent of Africa.
Cultural leadership was obliterated. Cultural leadership was obliterated. There's this mentality, why should we invest in Africa as outsiders if the rich Africans don't invest in Africa? There's this mentality, which I think has allowed a very small group of people to take over those countries politically, but also economically. And that's why you have something like, why should we invest in Africa as outsiders if the rich Africans don't invest in Africa? I think the World Bank says between 60 and 70% of Africa's capital shifted out of the continent. It's in banks in Europe and Asia and maybe America as well. But these people just do what the colonialists did, which was suck the wealth out and shift it overseas. It's the politics. And that goes back to the colonial project, the way Africa's societies, between 6,000 and 10,000 political units that existed pre-colonial times, were carved up by outsiders, simply drawing lines on maps and, between Germany, France, Britain, saying, right, that bit's your bit, that's bit, we'll put the line there, often dividing whole societies. And these states have got, Nigeria, for example, 400 languages, 400 separate languages and counting. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Maybe as many or more centers of old political power. So it's the overlay of these new states on old societies. And states that had, those societies had no part in their creation at all. They were just created and then handed over to them. Suddenly, in the 1950s and 60s, you're independent now, off you go. I think the World Bank says between 60 and 70% of Africa's capital shifted out of the continent. It's in banks in Europe and Asia and maybe America as well. But these people just do what the colonialists did, which was suck the wealth out and shift it overseas. And to think you can create a nation state like that was always madness. So it is the evolution of those societies that I think it'll take a lot of time. It'll take generations for those nation states to create the sort of feeling of citizenship that Americans have or British people have. And so I just don't think, I think that's the core of the failure of development. Lots of countries going along nicely, suddenly huge political upheaval, maybe even civil war, all destroyed. Everybody flees, the money shifts out. And I think that's one. And I think the other one, which is closely linked to it, is that Africa's politics have fallen into the hands of elites, as the Nigerians would call them. These are a class of people who are pure business politicians. I came across a wonderful example the other day from Kenya, where a man who cycled around on a bicycle was trying to get himself elected, and the people just laughed at him and they say, "You've only got a bicycle. What can you do for us? We need a big man with a big car with money. That's the politician we need to." So there's this mentality, which I think has allowed a very small group of people to take over those countries politically, but also economically. And that's why you have something like, I think the World Bank says between 60 and 70% of Africa's capital shifted out of the continent. It's in banks in Europe and Asia and maybe America as well. But these people just do what the colonialists did, which was suck the wealth out and shift it overseas. And until that changes. That is, until there's a new generation or even a revolution that actually takes power back to African people, I think those problems, that lack of development, will continue. Why should we invest in Africa as outsiders if rich Africans don't invest in Africa? I think the colonial impact was twofold. One was the creation of those states, 53 states created out of 6,000 created by foreigners. Africans had no part in their creation. But the other factor, and this is a delicate one, and I tread carefully here, is the destruction of belief in Africa, the lack of self-confidence, the feeling that we can't do it. And I think that was also a result of the colonial impact, because I think it was short enough to destroy leadership in Africa. It was short, but not long enough to replace it with anything else. So the old ways, the old political systems were just wiped out by the colonial impact. And with that, any form of political or cultural leadership was obliterated.
Africans in the diaspora, particularly in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Jamaica, were very particular about having connection with the continent of Africa. You'll remember that they had many meetings, and you'll be familiar with some of the names, such as Sylvester Williams from Trinidad and Tobago, such as Marcus Garvey, and his call for Africans to go back to the mother continent. And you will also remember African Americans such as W.B.E. Du Bois, who was very active in the process of liberating the African Americans from the clutches of slavery and discrimination.
Cultural leadership was obliterated. Cultural leadership was obliterated. There's this mentality.
In the 1945 meeting, which for the first time was attended by Africans who later played a critical role in the struggle for decolonization. But it must concern us, particularly at this time, why in order for us to understand the present, we must understand the past, which will also enable us to have a glimpse on what the future holds.
Cultural leadership was obliterated. Cultural leadership was obliterated. There's this mentality.
Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on your word today and let it bring forth fruit in our lives. Open our minds and our thinking and our understanding that we might be able to behold your wondrous grace, your splendiferous ability to step into our lives and do things that transcend human comprehension. Great God that you are, I trust you to have your way in this place. You are sovereign. You are Yahweh. You are omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. Manifest your glory in this place. I ask you in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. When you're anointed, people will they will mock you. They will mock you. That's why you got to get your feelings out of people. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. God has included all of us. God has included all of us.
They fight against the Israelites who try to free their mind, their spirit, from the yoke of bondage. Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black, Christ is black, the angels are black, and that's right, the 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Let me tell you something, success leaves breadcrumbs. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. It's not going to be easy as dreaming about it. Dreaming about it and being about it is two different things. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. Let me tell you something. Success leaves breadcrumbs. Why just wander into it when you can just follow the trail and get in the pathway and follow the footsteps of somebody else? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy as dreaming about it. Dreaming about it and being about it is two different things. Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. We make the Bible American if we're from America. We make it from a Spanish-speaking country if we're from Spain. We make it African if we're from an African perspective. But the Bible is so knit that carefully studied and weaved, God has included all of us.
The 12 tribes of Israel are black. The 12 tribes of Israel are black. Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black. Christ is black. The angels are black. And that's right. The 12 tribes of Israel are black.
It did not say that God so loved the church. It said God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have as a possession right now, not hope for, but have eternal life. You think you're going to get eternal life. No, you have eternal life. So he had to pay enough, die enough, bleed enough, suffer enough to be efficacious in his blood, enough to be inclusive, to invite the whole world into his experience. In the tapestry of his history, in the study of his lineage, he includes people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and types.
The 12 tribes of Israel are black. The 12 tribes of Israel are black. Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black. Christ is black. The angels are black. And that's right. The 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. Different moral makeup and complexities. He includes Rahab the harlot, Ruth the Moabitess. I mean, Jesus claims these people as his great ancestors. These people that some of you wouldn't eat with were in the lineage of Jesus Christ. This is not something that has been passed on to us. No, it is not something that has been given to us. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. We were always in the tapestry as well as everybody else. That's why we can have white folks and black folks and brown folks all dancing and shouting together, because whether you are black, white, or brown, we're dancing about the red.
The 12 tribes of Israel are black. The 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Y'all didn't hear what I'm saying. We're dancing about the red, the blood. It wasn't a special blood for a special people. It was enough blood to save us all.
Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black. Christ is black. The angels are black. And that's right. The 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Jesus has been passed from judgment hall to judgment hall. He has faced all kinds of adversity. He has been beaten with a cat of 9 tails. He has been scourged sorely to the point that Isaiah says his entrails were hanging out. Not just back scarred and beaten, but his entrails would be his guts were peeking out through the lacerations in his skin. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. And in this state of adversity, this state of debauchery, this state of decadence, this state of humiliation, he is paraded down the street in front of the crowd of people who were and were not interested in him at all. God has included all of us. God has included all of us. Let me tell you something. Success leaves breadcrumbs. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. It's not going to be easy as dreaming about it. Dreaming about it and being about it is two different things. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. Let me tell you something. Success leaves breadcrumbs. Why just wander into it when you can just follow the trail and get in the pathway and follow the footsteps of somebody else? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy as dreaming about it. Dreaming about it and being about it is two different things. I found out you can't get people to sow into you if you don't sow into them. When you're anointed, people will they will mock you. They will mock you. That's why you got to get your feelings out of people because you don't always get support from the place you sowed it. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on your word today and let it bring forth fruit in our lives. Open our minds and our thinking and our understanding that we might be able to behold your wondrous grace, your splendiferous ability to step into our lives and do things that transcend human comprehension. Great God that you are, I trust you to have your way in this place. You are sovereign. You are Yahweh. You are omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. Manifest your glory in this place. I ask you in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Selective service system. Selective service. You've been selected to serve. You've been chosen to serve. Selective service is what we use in the government. From a theological perspective, we would use a term called chosen. To be chosen is to be drafted. Means I didn't ask for it. I wasn't seeking it. This is not an answer to prayer. I have been selected. I have been chosen. And when we think about chosen, it sounds so good. It's easy to preach about. I am chosen. I am the Lord's chosen. It sounds real good and pompous. It sounds just as prestigious as the scarlet robe they put on Jesus and called him King of the Jews. But in reality, chosen is not always fun. The reality is, many times in the Bible, when you were chosen for struggle, for strife, for resistance, for obstacles. And while it was difficult to be chosen, it also was a compliment that God thought you were worthy enough to choose you.
The 12 tribes of Israel are black. The 12 tribes of Israel are black. Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black. Christ is black. The angels are black. And that's right, the 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 15 through 68, we broke the commandments of God and were made to suffer a life of bondage and oppression and slavery.
Somebody say, I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen. I have been chosen.
The 12 tribes of Israel are black. The 12 tribes of Israel are black. Black men and black women have become their own worst enemies today, fighting against the truth that God is black. Christ is black. The angels are black. And that's right, the 12 tribes of Israel are black.
Until Africa comes together as a continent speaking with one voice, one continent, one people, nothing, and I repeat, nothing is going to change. System that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited.
Africa, like any other society anywhere in the world, was involved in this same evolutionary process, going from family to tribe to clan to nation to continent. This evolutionary process was interrupted by European imperialism. Europe everywhere speaks of European continental unity, even though Europe has fought more fratricidal wars than any other continent or all the continents put together. Europe still speaks of European continental unity. Of course, Africa will unify before Europe, but that's not the point of discussion here this evening. The fact that Europe, with all the fratricidal wars she had fought, can speak of continental unity shows this evolutionary process. It came in two forms, slavery and colonialism. First, they took over 300 million, the strongest, out of Africa, and then they divided Africa at the Berlin Conference. And then they divided Africa at the Berlin Conference. And then they divided Africa at the Berlin Conference.
It was all by design. 1884. They did something else in addition to chopping us up. They also set out to make the African believe that everything African was bad and undesirable, and everything Western, particularly French and British, was more desirable. We call that the legacy of colonization. Prior to that, they started long working on the slaves. Make them think everything about them, forget anything about Africa. Where you come from is a horrible place, diseased and dying people, constantly at war with themselves, uncivilized. Cut out any communications with them. You need to just know what we tell you. And we call that the legacy of slavery. So So that way, you look at where we are today. 135 years later, a system that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited.
So you can see that Africa herself was moving on this evolutionary process. This evolutionary process, which would lead to continental unity, and Africa will still be the first continent unified, was interrupted by European capitalism. Since it was interrupted by European capitalism, an evolutionary process, the only way that Africa can unite today is through a revolutionary process aiming at a socialist economy. If capitalism destroyed us, it doesn't make sense to use capitalism to continue with it. We must use the antithesis of capitalism, which of course is socialism. And certainly if an evolutionary process has been interrupted, the only way we can capture the time lost is through a revolutionary process. We state these facts only to let you know that those of us who are revolutionary, Pan-Africanists, is not because we love revolution. It is historically determined, and we have no alternative but to follow history and to use history for the benefit of our people.
System that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited, remains in place today, alive and well. And we sit here and we ask ourselves, why isn't Africa moving forward? Why does Africa continue to be taken advantage of? Well, I'll tell you why, very simply. Until Africa comes together as a continent speaking with one voice, one continent, one people, nothing, and I repeat, nothing is going to change.
So this then is the general outlines of Pan-Africanism. So you must not think that Africanism just began. Had Africa been left untrampled by European imperialism, we'd have a long time achieved continental unity. Secondly, Pan-Africanism must be seen as a movement, a mass movement. And this mass movement must be properly understood. Africa, of course, because of racism, is belittled everywhere. And many people do not see Africa's constant, underline the word constant, contributions to world civilization. Since the 1940s, Africa has given, even before the 1940s, actually, we can go back to the Honorable Marcus Garvey, Africa has given to world political movements a mass character. Africans revolt in masses, never as a vanguard party. If you look at the independence struggle in Africa, it was nothing less than mass. If you look at the struggle in the Caribbean for independence, it was nothing less than mass. And even in the United States of America, the only movement they call a mass movement is our movement. Therefore, this mass character must be properly understood. Pan-Africanism has this mass character. Africans have this mass character in responding. And our responsibility is to bring this mass character together.
Until Africa comes together as a continent speaking with one voice, one continent, one people, nothing, and I repeat, nothing is going to change. System that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited.
And then they divided Africa at the Berlin Conference. And then they divided Africa at the Berlin Conference.